welcome back to the Party Up Podcast. I'm your host, Sal, and today we got Tony. We got Tony in the party. It's Tony Balko. Tony runs the Media Equipment Center here at URI, and he's basically he's the reason I'm allowed to use this room. So, thanks, Tony.
No, you paid good money to use this room.
That's very true.
I just keep it running.
Yeah, that's very true. But I appreciate all the good work that you do here,
Thanks, man.
Yeah, dude. The Media Equipment Center's come in clutch for me a lot over the past couple of years.
Sweet.
Yeah. I finally just gotten my own setup that I just started using for the my job at the career center here on campus.
Setup, you mean camera, tripod, sound stuff?
I just have I already had the tripod, right? Like I had the tripod since about last summer. I got just a nice cheap one, but I got a 6D and a Rode video mic, shotgun mic setup that I'm using now.
Nice.
Yeah, it's coming in handy.
Cool, man.
Especially since I'm not in you need to be in a production class to use a lot of the Media Equipment Center stuff, and I'm not in production classes this semester.
Well, that must feel weird.
Yeah, a little bit. It's nice though. I get to focus more on creative stuff. And I get to, help out in limited capacities, do behind the scenes for people and everything.
Yeah.
So yeah.
You're still working on sets.
Yeah. Yeah, not yet, but
when they start rolling.
Yeah, when people start filming. Yeah,
cool,
totally.
Man.
So, where did you go to undergrad? You went in Pittsburgh, right?
Right, University of Pittsburgh.
You went to Pitt.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, cool.
Panther.
What?
I've always my school, kindergarten through 12, we were Cougars.
Okay.
I'm from Pennsylvania, south of Pittsburgh.
Nice.
Smithton, Pennsylvania.
Yeah, hometown represent, man. I'm not from that area of Pennsylvania, but I am from Pennsylvania.
Where are you
so
from?
That counts for. I'm from around Scranton.
Okay, so I'm on the other side.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Like the opposite end.
The opposite.
Like diagonally. They're at the opposite end of it.
Opposite corner. So yeah, I went from being a Cougar to a Panther, and then grad school I was a Panther again.
Cool.
So every time I've been in school, it's been a Panther or Cougar.
You've just been living the big cat life.
Big cat life.
Yeah, totally.
Now I'm a goat.
So were you always a film, guy? Like, did you go into undergrad with the idea, with the intention of studying and getting into film?
Yeah, actually, my first year of college, I went to it's called Point Park University now, but it was Point Park College at the time.
Okay.
And they were the only place in Pittsburgh. Well, that's not true. I guess there was another place, but there was if you wanted to get a BFA, like in film production, that was where you went.
Cool.
And then I transferred out of there and went to Pitt, which is a film studies program. But there's a really cool place in Pittsburgh. It's been around since 1970, called Pittsburgh Filmmakers, which is an independent film co-op.
Okay.
And then it eventually also turned into a school, and now it's a bunch of stuff, and it's more complicated than that. But that's kind of where I learned.
Okay,
film.
that's cool. Oh, here
So
comes Justin.
Through my school. Okay, sorry, dude.
No, it's all.
I'll get you after this.
Okay.
I'll come back.
Okay, that's cool. That's cool. All right, we're just
Pause.
gonna put this on pause. Yeah. Yeah, we were talking about. Okay, we're back, everybody. Tony had to go and do some tours, give some people a tour.
To do a tour.
Yeah, you had to do a tour. You were doing it up, man. You were.
I can do that on autopilot.
Yeah,
man. I've
they
done
seemed
it so
like
many
they
times.
seemed like they were having fun.
I try to be a bit of a showman.
Yeah. Yeah, you put on a little bit of a show.
I don't just read the numbers. I give them a little personality. I think about the times I went on those weird college visits, and they were strange.
Yeah?
And
how so? Strange as in they were just weirdly boring? Or
weirdly boring. Most of the time they weren't actually talking to you. They were talking to parents.
Yeah.
Or my parents didn't go. I didn't want them there. I was I wanted to go
interesting.
by myself. And
that's a good...
no one paid attention. They're like,
that's
I
an
don't know,
interesting-
go around here.
Yeah, that's an interesting observation that the tour guide would be paying attention more to the parents than the kids. Because it's who are you selling the school to, really?
Yeah, that happens.
Yeah.
I don't know about, that's what when I have to do it, I'm like, let me look at you, students.
Yeah.
What do you want?
Yeah, and I feel like that's the way to do it. And I don't think...
Because that's not how it was for me when I went to undergrad.
Yeah, and I can't remember when I was taking tours here whether or not they would do that to me, but... Yeah,
I think our tour
honestly
guides
don't
here are
remember.
pretty good. They're
They are, yeah.
That's a tight ship they run.
Yeah.
They can walk backwards.
They take themselves super seriously.
Yeah,
totally.
Yeah.
But we were talking about your time in undergrad at Pitt, and you were talking about I forget the name, but the film co-op that
Pittsburgh Filmmakers.
Pittsburgh Filmmakers.
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
So it started as a hippie kind of film co-op in 1970.
Uh-huh.
Basically, a bunch of artists got together and bought a camera, sort of together, and made it accessible for members who knew how to use it and paid a nominal fee, and then it grew into this huge thing. And then it became a school. So it's one of the few co-op. There were a lot of co-ops that kind of sprung up during that time, but it stayed alive because it transitioned into a school.
Mm-hmm. And when were you? What was your involvement with it? You were a member?
I I worked in the cage. We called it the equipment office.
The cage.
Yeah, well, that's like the colloquial word in a film school for like your equipment.
For where you get the equipment?
Yeah. We didn't call it that. We called it the EQ, or the equipment office.
Okay.
And then we have the mech, but it's all the same shit.
Yeah.
And so I had a work study job there, and that's how I started working there. And then I just met all
That's how you sort of got into the field that you would eventually like.
Yeah, that's how I got interested in like weird stuff, because the people I worked with were like the total, and I mean this in the best way possible. They were like really super. I was a country boy. I was like an 18-year-old hillbilly.
Oh yeah.
And I thought I wanted to make like comedies. And once I kind of saw what else was out there, shit changed for me real fast. I met all these weirdos. And they were really sweet, and a lot of them are dear friends to this day. And they were like, "No, you got to check this out." And I would go to cool music shows. I would see I'd see experimental film.
Yeah.
And then there was this also there were these few folks I worked with, one of my professors, and then some people who worked in the cage who ran the screening series called Jefferson Presents, which was totally independent of filmmakers, but it was every month they would show 2 or 3 hours of like 16 millimeter experimental stuff.
Yo, that's crazy.
And they did it for 10 years.
Really?
So I wasn't there for the whole 10 years, but
but it had to be pretty formative for you while you were there.
It was amazing. I mean, I've seen, it was such a good series, and I've seen so much stuff like that generally you only ever get to read about. Because a lot of it is rentals. They would rent from the New York Film Co-op mainly, but also Canyon in San Francisco. That shit's expensive.
Yeah.
But, they were nonprofit. They kept the ticket prices as low as possible, and they just basically used the money to rent the space and rent the movies. And I'm sure a lot of that came out of pocket too, just because those guys really love doing it.
That's cool.
And yeah, it was amazing. I saw so much weird stuff, and most of it on 16. And then they would also, and this was really formative too, they would do a local show once a year. They would always let local filmmakers show their work. They would, within their programs.
Yeah.
But the 1 month a year was always like a locals only kind of show, and they were just crazy kind of weirdo film parties that were amazing. There were some of the
that sounds really
memories.
Interesting, because like I have a very limited like glimpse into the world of like experimental 16 millimeter filmmaking. Like it's very much not my wheelhouse.
Yeah.
The most exposure I have to it is what I've seen the students do here, and then also when we showed off a few of your films last year over there in the living room.
Yeah.
And
very similar vibe.
Yeah, and like, half of me is like, this is some weird shit, man. But like the other half of me has like such an immense respect for it, because it's like, it's just like pure creativity, It's just like, it's what you can do. Like,
yeah,
it's just doing cool shit with the equipment, like messing with it within the confines of what it can do, and just seeing what you can make. And it's like, it's really interesting.
And particularly for me in that zone, Jefferson Presents tended to be a very structural film heavy, and that's like a capital S structural film, like it's like a thing.
Yeah.
And so what you saw of my movies out there, when you say like messing with the film, seeing what it can do, that's not the entire tradition of experimental film. It's like a kind of a specific part.
Sure.
But I really latched onto that shit. So and I was like working in the film cage, and then I was also a projectionist. I like projected 35 millimeter film like for a living, and I was like surrounding myself with these machines all the time, and watching other people make stuff and making my own stuff. It was a lot of fun. There were dance parties.
Cool.
Good times, man. It's really good times.
So that was sort of your undergrad experience, and then
that was part of my undergrad, and then what I did,
and then a little bit after.
Yeah, because then I stopped being a work study and started being like a adult there.
Yeah.
So like our cage, right, has me, and then the rest are students. Their cage had like 6 adults maybe.
Yeah.
And then work studies, and the work studies weren't even allowed to give you equipment to take out of the building.
Oh really?
So it'd be like having 6 of me.
Oh man.
It was good. It was luxurious. The pay was bad, but the place was awesome, and it was huge. It was like this massive space. I forget how many square feet, but 3 stories. It was in an old converted warehouse, sound stage, 3 giant black and white dark rooms, color dark rooms, animation stands, like 8 Final Cut suites I think we had.
Oh wow.
It was enormous.
Yeah.
Really, really cool.
So how do you get from there to here? Like, how do you sort of fall into this position? Well, when did you start working here, for one? 2014.
Okay.
So you've been here for a few years now.
Yeah. It'll be 4 in August.
Okay, cool.
I went to grad school in Milwaukee, University of Wisconsin, Milwaukee, for film. I did that, and then that was fun. And then I moved to Chicago for a few years, and Chicago's a rad town.
You lived in Chicago?
Mm-hmm.
That's cool. I'm thinking about heading out to Chicago after I graduate.
It's
here.
a great town. I can give you all sorts of recommendations.
Yeah.
All sorts of people.
Ooh.
Yeah, lots
That's
of good
cool.
food.
Yeah,
lots of culture.
Yeah, that's the thing, right? Is like I know a few I have a few creative connections in Chicago, right? Like this kid I went to high school with, he's out there, he's doing.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, he's writing stuff. I think like he writes like some comedy articles. Like I think a couple of his pieces got picked up by like Funny or Die.
A lot of comedy in Chicago because of the scene of improv.
Oh,
I've
yeah.
been to
Yeah. Like
clubs.
I mean, like this kid I know went to like I think he did some kind of fellowship with Second City or something like that.
Yep.
Yeah. So it's like a lot of
it's a
comedians
huge
get their
scene
start
there. I mean, I forget where we used to go. Oh God, what was the name of that club? It wasn't one of the more famous ones, but anyway, yeah, it's a big deal there.
Yeah. There's
good.
There's a lot of creativity coming out of there, and I just have like a few really really solid like just really good friends out there that I think I could make some cool shit with.
No, Chicago's rad. It's not expensive either. It's the cheapest big city in the country you can live in.
Yeah, so I might be hitting you up for some connections there, man.
I can give you some serious recommendations.
That's
but all my
cool.
friends there are weirdos, so
that's cool.
You'll have to.
I'm always down to talk to weird like I want to with this podcast, right? Like what I'm using it for is literally just to talk to people about what they do.
Cool.
You know? So it's like that's what I want. Like that's what I want to get better at by doing this. It's like I just like talking to people about what they're passionate about.
Sweet.
It's fucking cool.
Yeah, man. It's nice to have someone listen to me for once.
I got you.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
But yeah, Chicago's rad, so we can talk about that
cool.
at some other point. So yeah, I went to grad school.
Went to grad school
for film, video, animation,
Wisconsin.
and new genres. That's what my MFA's in.
Ooh. Wait. So film, video, animation, and new genres.
Yeah.
Ooh.
They didn't want to say
fancy.
new. I think they didn't want to say new media, which has other connotations, but basically,
new media kind of implies like a.
No, it has. They just. I think what they mean is like expanded cinema. So like.
Yeah. New media is kind of a bigger thing.
Stuff
right?
where you're not watching movies on a screen in a dark room, where it's expanded beyond a flat screen. Maybe it's an installation. Maybe it's a performance.
Ooh.
Maybe it's any number of ways that media can instigate itself in our reality that aren't here. Watch it on this flat thing.
Yeah.
And be quiet about it.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah, it's kind of a catch-all. They could have just said moving image and it would have worked too, but whatever.
New genres. It sounds fancy.
Yeah. But it was cool. It was a really good school. I had some amazing professors there. And if you're into film, like film analog,
yeah,
that's why I went there. But ironically, I stopped making film there and switched to making just video. And now I don't even do that anymore.
No.
I just do it for work.
Where's sort of your like stance on?
Oh, then then I found out about this job, applied to it, and got it.
Nice.
Yeah.
Cool.
I was sick of adjuncting.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's nice to hear that someone just like kind of goes along the conventional route and gets a solid gig. So
doesn't happen often.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm thinking.
But I always hated production.
Yeah.
In college, I had like production jobs, PA stuff, and it wasn't for me. I didn't like the schedule. I didn't like the attitude.
Yeah.
I didn't like how people got treated.
That's kind of what that's kind of what I'm afraid of.
I would feel gross after
like,
this. I'd be like, I get done from work and I watch somebody get reamed out. I got reamed out once for like really innocuous shit, and I was like, whoa, I don't know if this is for me. This lifestyle seems like rough.
So yeah, that's kind of what I'm afraid of, right? Is like if I entered sort of the film industry on the ground floor, it's like I'd resign myself to a PA or something like that, and I'm afraid I'm not going to be like, I'm afraid I'm just going to
It's a hustle no matter what.
Yeah.
The choices I've made were always a hustle. It was just more like, what's the vibe of the hustle?
Yeah, fair enough.
And that vibe was very tense.
Yeah.
And that's what made me
Kinda
say,
drove
I
you
don't
away
know
from
if
it?
I want to do this, because man, if everybody's this like upset and fast all the time, oof, that feels like.
So what was sort of your next move? Instead of this, I want to look at this, and you sort of like more of running kind of what you're doing here, like with a like.
No, so I worked in a cage, and then after that, I moved to Thailand for a year and taught English.
Oh, really?
I did that when I was 25.
Holy shit.
Yeah, that was wild.
That's cool.
Then I came back and I had a former student who was a proper scientist, Hemi. Do you remember her? So I was her TA for a couple classes at Filmmakers, and we became friends. She was the editor, Spike Lee's editor, who was here.
Oh yeah, I wasn't here for that.
So Hemi came, or we knew each other through me being her TA.
Oh wow.
And then I came back from Thailand, and she was still taking classes there, but she was like an actual scientist.
Yeah.
And she's like, "Oh hey, how are you?" We just met accidentally at Filmmakers one day, and I was like, "Oh good." She's like, "What are you doing for work?" I was like, "I have no idea." She's like, "Well, we need a dishwasher at my lab," and I was like, "Oh sweet." So I started working at this science lab, the Pittsburgh Institute for Neurodegenerative Diseases.
Oh wow.
And I was their dishwasher. It was cool. I had health insurance. It didn't pay that great. And then it's a very long story, but involves a pyramid scheme and the kind of beginnings of the economic crisis. We lost all of our money.
Oh shit.
But then Michael J. Fox helped out, like literally.
What?
Well, Michael J. Fox has Parkinson's disease and has biggest one of the biggest foundations for that.
Yeah.
So we got some bridge funding.
Ooh, nice.
The head honcho could get other cash. But what was crazy was during that time, because shit was so turbulent, and we lost our lab manager. I like somehow became the lab manager for this like highfalutin,
for this like high status science
Parkinson's
lab?
researcher. Yeah, and I was like
wow.
running centrifuges and like $1 microscopes
What
and
the
shit.
fuck, dude?
And I was
crazy.
throwing away rat bodies, and I was like, I could dispose of nuclear waste, like just in our design. But you had to take classes, like a class, to like be able to do this, and I could and I was like destroying. You'd have to do it in front of like special witnesses, like controlled substances and stuff. It was crazy. I could throw away a lot of shit.
That's crazy.
Dangerous stuff. So then I had that gig, and then that's when after that I was like, well, I don't know, and I knew nothing about science. I was just careful.
Yeah.
And so they liked that, and we're like, yeah, instead of having to pay someone twice what we pay you, who's qualified to do it, we'll just we'll give you a raise, and you can just like fuck off until you're done. And I did, and I don't think everyone there liked me, but I certainly had some fun.
Yeah.
It's very international. It was our potlucks were outrageous. There were people from all over the world working there. Like there was a weirdly huge Italian contingent.
What?
Like 8 or 9 Italians working there. A couple
Russians,
a couple people from South Korea, a bunch of people from China, a few people. Let me think of some of the more. And then in potlucks, people would make the shit that they, in their wheelhouse, and so you'd have stuff like. Our potlucks were just outrageous, and scientists are usually. I shouldn't say that.
Your potlucks are outrageous. What exactly do you mean by that?
You have people from all over the world, and scientists can follow recipes. Man, they know how to cook. So like,
oh yeah,
you would get some like stew from Kenya, and then you would get like some pickled stuff from Korea, and then you get like a Russian thing.
So you guys just threw fucking ball and dinner parties.
They were outrageous potlucks. So like it'd be like, okay, we're gonna have a potluck for the holiday. Everybody bring in a dish.
Yeah.
And one, everybody. It was a very competitive environment, and two, these folks are like biologists and shit. They know how to follow recipes, and they know.
And so they just wanted to bring.
They could cook.
Yeah.
They knew how to treat a piece of meat. They knew how to get a stew going.
That's so fucking cool.
Yeah, it was great. But man, was it a tense environment.
Yeah.
Oh God.
What,
I saw a fist fight once.
Oh, what? Really?
Yeah.
Like among scientists?
Yeah, these two. One lady from Argentina and the other one was from China. They got into a fist fight.
Holy shit.
Yeah, and then their boss, got arrested for soliciting sex from a 12-year-old.
Oh my God.
Who was a cop, not a real 12-year-old. And that shit was crazy. They had to put everything on lockdown, and they did. It was nuts. Like I come into work one day, there's cops everywhere. There's police tape over the door.
Like, what's going on?
Yeah, and then it was a whole scandal, and that it was bad because he was also a medical doctor and his patients. It was a bad scene.
Nasty.
Yes, it was a dramatic workplace.
Yeah, sounds like it.
Yeah, and then people desperate to make their name. And like
in the science community and shit.
Really, I was talking about lots of industries are stressful and competitive in science. From my outsider looking in, kind of like, how did I wind up here? Yeah, it was cool, but wasn't for me either.
Well, yeah, I mean, it definitely doesn't sound like it's in your wheelhouse. It sounds like you just.
I mean, I learned a lot
through happenstance.
I can make you some. I used to make all sorts of mixtures and shit.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm serious.
So you've got like a backdoor science
Right, except with zero official qualification in it.
Yeah.
So you could see this 3-year history of employment and be like, what?
What?
You had no training in this whatsoever. But yeah, I could kind of fake my way through it.
That's nuts, man. So where did you end up after that? Like, how did you?
Grad school, and then.
So you went from that to grad
Milwaukee,
school.
yeah.
Okay.
And then then Milwaukee to Chicago, and then Chicago for a couple years. And then, I was adjuncting, like teaching a couple classes at different schools, which is fun, but not enough money.
Yeah.
And you got to have health insurance. Yeah, it's really rough. Adjuncting's
that's just sort of like a
per course instructor. So you get I could teach this, and it's like, all right, here's your $3,000 for your 15 weeks of instruction.
Oh shit.
Right. And you could get like 4 or 6 a year, and it's like that's not a lot of cash.
Yeah.
So then this
Doesn't
job
seem
came
like a
up.
solid gig. It might be like just in if you really want to teach, right? Like for your whole thing, or like.
Right, which I did, and I love teaching. It's still my favorite thing to do for money.
Yeah.
But you got to find the right place to do it for enough money.
Yeah, I mean, it seans like you got a little bit of an outlet for that here. You know, you're very.
I teach stuff all the time.
Yeah.
It's just informal.
Exactly.
Or I run workshops or whatever. But yeah, I like it. I like performing. Weirdly. Yeah. Teaching's my old man was a school teacher, and he always said that it was like much of it was performance. You're a different person when you're in front of the class.
Yeah,
it's still you,
totally.
But you have to.
Yeah. You got to, in a way, you got to put on a show.
And it's exhausting.
Yeah,
you wouldn't think it is, but it's exhausting because the way how aware you have to be when you're doing it.
Yeah,
it's a tiring.
Because every single it's not like you just have to get up there and riff. Like you got to have a point A to point B like every single day,
and you have to be able to answer questions.
Yeah,
and that requires a lot of thinking.
Yep.
And I think about what my dad did, which is he taught 3rd grade mostly.
Oh yeah,
and that's like you're with those punks for 7 hours a day. For like every day of the
oftentimes,
week.
Like I think back on that, right? And it's like you obviously don't think about it when you're there, but it's like looking back on it, it's like mad respect.
It's crazy
for grade school teachers because it's like you have to be really dedicated to that.
Right. And I look at my niece is in kindergarten this year in Seattle, and her teacher sends weekly news blasts.
Yeah.
And it makes me tired reading them. Like, we did this week, and it's like, oh my God, you're amazing.
Yeah.
That's a really, really hard job. I always knew teaching was challenging. You know, I never, as the son of an educator, I never had illusions about what it was. Yeah. But man, now that I've done it for a while and have done it in the past, and when I was in Thailand, I was teaching like
you were teaching.
I was
English.
teaching 13-year-olds. That's like the worst human being in the world. A 13-year-old, 13 to 14. It is.
That's true.
We all know that.
Yep.
If we've been that age, that's a rough age for everybody.
Yeah, man. Tweens are fucking assholes.
It sucks, man. And my gig there was like I had 50. The way it broke down, whatever reason, I always had 51 students per class.
Yeah.
I taught 21 different classes of over 50 kids a week. Wow. So in every given week, I was seeing 1,000 different faces, something like
that's
1,000.
Crazy,
something.
Man.
Yeah, and it was bananas. And the school made me give them all 10 scores each. So I had to give 10 separate grades to 1,000 different students.
Wow.
It was gnarly. I don't think they learned anything.
So like how much experience did you have? Like whatever they whatever like a Thailand native person would speak. Like did you have much?
No,
experience
they'll take
in
anybody there. You just have to be a native English speaker with a
really.
Yeah, and you don't even necessarily need a college degree.
Really, you just got to be a native English speaker.
Yeah, you're more like. This was my experience in it. I mean, I had definitely meaningful interactions, and I think I got through to some classes, but anytime you're in a scenario with 50 students in a room, the kids in front are practically fluent, and the kids in back don't know anything,
don't learn anything,
and actively don't want to learn anything.
Yeah,
that's a hard room to teach to.
Yeah, that's a big class, man.
Huge,
51.
Yeah, and it's supposed to be speaking, so I have to I have to talk to them all. It was really gnarly, but I think it was more for show. I was in like a fancy-ish school, and it was like, look how many foreigners we can hire to teach your children English as a way to be competitive with other schools.
Okay.
Like the school down the street has 15 English teachers from Australia or whatever. Like,
we're gonna get 20.
You have to.
Yeah.
And they would pair us with like really advanced or super kind of smart go-getter kids, and those are the ones we probably had the most. And half of those I know went to like studied abroad themselves.
Yeah.
They're probably all doctors now or something. They were like super uptight 15-year-olds, totally perfect, genius.
Yeah, the ones who were like super dedicated and like, I'm gonna be the best doctor
and they were
in the
really
world.
sweet to us. They'd be like, I don't know where to go for this. Like one time I got jackfruit sap stuck in my chest hair. And it's really sticky, and I panicked, and I'm pouring all this shit all over me. I'm like soap, water, juice, whatever.
Yeah.
I was like anything I could think of, like something, and I weirdly never thought of oil, which was stupid. So I called my student Noom, And I said, Noom, I got jackfruit sap stuck in all my hair. I can't get it out.
Can you help me deal with this?
And she's like, hold on, let me ask my mom. You hear her put the phone down and then shout, and then you hear a pause.
Yeah.
And then you just hear this whole house full of people laughing really hard. And then she's like, use oil. And I was like, what? Like what? She's like, vegetable oil. I was like, oh, okay.
Oh, shit.
And I poured some corn oil down my chest, and the gunk came out.
It just came right out.
Yeah, I thought I was going to have to shave my chest.
Yeah.
It was crazy. And then I had it in my eyebrows and shit. This stuff was like glue.
How did that happen?
So you know what a jackfruit looks like?
No, not really.
It's I want to say it's like the world's biggest fruit, if not the one of, and it's huge. It's like my torso, and it's all spiky and fucked up looking.
Yeah.
And when you cut into it,
this is like bigger than a pumpkin we're talking, because a pumpkin like.
Yeah,
like on average.
But pumpkins can't. Pumpkins
can
get
huge.
Of
Yeah,
this
yeah,
room.
yeah.
Yes, but it's like that size kind of shit.
Yeah.
Huge, and you cut it, and it's like wood on the inside with these like pockets of beautiful fruit with a seed inside. So you only eat that fruit, but the pith or whatever is all woody.
Yeah.
But between the fruit and the pith is like this sap.
Yeah.
And
we
we had a tree in our front yard. So usually when you buy it, it's processed, not canned. Just somebody's gone through the trouble of hacking this shit up and pulling the fruit out.
All the fruit out.
But we had a tree in our yard, and it was ready to harvest. I was like, hell yeah, I could go outside, cut this thing down, and then I got covered in the sap. I couldn't get it out. So Noom saved me there. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, but her family laughed at me.
This is what I was hoping for. You're just a fucking you're a bounty of crazy fucking stories.
I got weird stories, man. We haven't even talked about where I grew up. That's where all the dark ones come from.
Oh boy.
It's really messed up.
Yeah, we don't have to get into those if you don't want to.
No, I got out.
Yeah.
I liked growing up there, but man, I tell some stories and people think I'm lying.
Yeah.
I tell them things
okay,
about
what's
how
like
I grew
entry
up.
level? Like what's like a go-to example that you would like tell
See,
people?
I knew I was gonna like space out when I was put on the spot. What would be a good one? A good starting point. I guess. Would it be?
Is this more about the place where you grew up and less about the?
Yeah, it's just like some crazy hillbilly stuff.
Oh yeah.
And just like how wild it all was. It just seems unbelievable. Weird shit. Like a lot of it involves guns and trucks, alcohol.
Yeah.
Drugs.
Yeah, it makes sense. I kind of
weird, torn muscles.
Yeah, like
vomiting on yourself, that kind of stuff.
I grew up in kind of a more rural area of Pennsylvania, but I was like right on the outskirts of the suburbs, right? Like I didn't if Scranton was the city, Clark Summit was the suburb.
Yeah.
And then
Scranton's a big town.
I lived outside of Scranton's a decent sized city. But then it's got like a town outside of it that's Clark Summit. That's kind of where I consider myself to have grown up, even though I was like 10 minutes outside.
Yeah.
And my house was kind of in a rural area, but I never really had exposure to any crazy shit. My parents really are not like, we were basically just had a house in the suburbs, but taken out of the suburbs. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, I mean,
so I just spent most of my time was spent playing video games.
It was fine, like my parents were cool.
Yeah.
And all that shit. It was like, okay, so this is in Westmoreland County, but it's next to Fayette County. And Fayette County is one of the gnarliest counties in Pennsylvania. And it's got some fairly hardcore poverty. And it's like this whole opioid epidemic shit, like where I grew up, has hit it super like crazy hard.
Yeah, I can see that.
I left before that shit started to happen, but it's like
the
ground zero
the
for that
opioid
stuff.
epidemic is hitting Pennsylvania really, really hard, like more so than
and West Virginia. So
Yeah.
like where I'm from is directly, I'm equidistant where I grew up, basically from West Virginia and Pittsburgh. It's like kind of halfway in between them.
Okay.
So anyway, that kind of Mon Valley, Appalachia darkness shit going on. It was rural, even though Pittsburgh wasn't that far. It was still like the city, and we were separate. I never do it good on the spot, but like, it was nuts, man. I could just read you a list of nicknames, and like nobody had like their real name, right? So there was there was ears, meats. They were brothers. And I used to inscribe these Bibles for Marconi Club members when they passed away, and I had to do one of their Bibles, and that's what I learned. And I was like, I got a calligraphy set as a kid.
Yeah.
And then if you died, as a member of the Marconi Club, you get a white leather Bible.
What was the
and it would
Marconi?
get
What was the
inscribed.
Marconi Club?
It still exists. I'm a member. I've been a member since I was 16 years old.
What is the Marconi Club?
It's a private Italian bar, basically.
Really?
Yeah, that my family is still heavily involved in.
That's kind of cool.
Yeah. So it's basically a nonprofit bar. Like a Knights of Columbus or a Sons of Italy kind of thing.
Yeah.
But it's the Marconi Club. And there was ears, meats.
When you died, like when a member of the Marconi Club died, you just like penned a little bit of a.
Yeah, you got a big white leather Bible, and then I could do calligraphy as a child. Like,
cool.
I was really into it, and so my dad would let me, because my dad was the one who had to do it.
Yeah, so he would transcribe the shit.
So he would tell me what to write, and I'd practice, and then I would do it. And the stakes felt so high because these Bibles were $75
a piece. That's crazy.
This is like in 1990, so
yeah.
I was like flipped out. But yeah, so let me think of some cool ones: goat head, meat head, duck
so
head.
wait. So you had goat head and meat head, but then you had meats, and then you had meat head.
No, there was meats. So ears and meats were brothers.
Yeah.
Then there was goat head, separate than meat head.
Yeah.
Hippie was meathead's brother. Meathead's brother. They're both still alive. Yeah. There was runner. Then there was also rerun.
Runner and rerun.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's see. Malacca, Pookie, Pee-wee, Buford.
Oh my God.
Meanie Matheny. Denno. Denno. He was a bastard. We threw his tent in the river once. He was a drifter who would work in our gas station in the summers and then disappear for the winters, and he would always threaten to shoot us.
Holy shit!
And we just needed to buy like a Snickers, and he was just an asshole. So yeah, one day we threw his tent in the river.
Where do any of these names I just want to know the stories behind some of these.
It's names, I don't know.
It's crazy.
There were people I grew up with who I didn't know their real names. Pork Chop and She-Ra, they were brother and sister.
And you had no idea what their real names were?
No, that was Jason, and I forget She-Ra's real name.
There you go.
Yeah. Lumpy, or Snickers, who is now also called Lumpy.
Okay.
Snaggle, that one's easy to figure out where that one came from, but he was also called.
The farthest we ever went, right, was just calling people like my one friend. I just don't know him by anything other than his last name.
No, dude, it's like one of those places where everybody has a nickname.
That's fucking crazy. It sounds like something out of some really, really strange.
Oh, here's a good one.
Like TV show or novel.
This is a long story, but basically, let's just say I maybe had a family member who would do these football sheets.
Okay.
Where you picked winners.
Yeah.
And you paid some money, and then you could win some money. It's like really low level. It wasn't like I'm betting, but it was like, and it was like a super low stakes like fantasy football type shit. Kind of like before fantasy football existed.
Yeah.
And I would go around with this family member at 8 years old, and go to people's houses and collect money.
Okay.
And give them their new ticket.
Oh.
I was collecting gambling debts at 8 years old, not knowing what I was doing. I was like, okay, go knock on the door and ask for the money. And I'd be like, hey, I need that money. It wasn't like seedy, gross gambling,
it was just
like, no, this is how you did your sheet.
No, that's what you were doing. Like you were a debt collector.
If you look at it in terms of what it actually is, yeah. And so
what the impression that this is giving me, right, is that it's like, some of these like really, really weird TV shows or movies where it's like the town is like the setting is the character.
Yeah.
Yeah. It sounds like
I think you could
totally
do one with my town. Have you ever seen League of Gentlemen? The British no, not Extraordinary Gentlemen. It's a separate thing. It's a BBC show from like the late 90s, early 2000s, I think. The town's called Royston Vasey.
Okay.
And the slogan is what is it? Oh, what is their slogan? The town has a slogan, but one of the characters says, "This is a local town for local people. There's nothing for you here."
Okay.
But it's one of those when I think of that kind of trope of a space as a character. My hometown could definitely be one. And don't get me wrong, I loved growing up there. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
But
it was just kind of off the wall.
It was a different world.
Yeah.
And to anything else I was, and now it's not. I don't think it's so fun. I think the heroin opioid thing is like
hit it really hard.
Really hard.
That's a massive bummer, man.
Yeah. So, but it's beautiful. I just got a picture today from my mom. The river's flooding.
Oh wow.
Pretty bad. It's been raining a lot out there.
Yeah. No, but
I think about where I am now and think about some of the shit I was doing as a child, and this like valley.
And it's like, what the
It's
fuck?
like, whoa, life is cool. Like I go all over the world.
Yeah,
and,
man, that's
and,
nuts.
and
I can't even fathom anything like that.
It's weird shit.
Yeah.
I always wanted to write a story about it, but I never know. It never works anytime I try to commit it.
Yeah, it's just tough to like put a narrative within the setting, I guess. Like,
or just so much of it involves family or people I know that I don't necessarily feel like telling a bunch of people on the record like exactly what happened. You know, not that there's anything that salacious. It's just more like
no, but it's more of like a courtesy thing. Like you don't
right. You don't want to. If I do that, then I go home, and next time I go to the club, someone's going to
like,
deck
what the
me.
fuck?
Right. How did you do that? Not that they would ever. You know.
Did you have a nickname?
Yeah.
What was yours?
It's embarrassing. Skinhead.
Oh shit!
Not in a Nazi way.
Yeah. No, totally not. But
my mother would never let me shave my head during school. First day of school, I always get a haircut appointment with Tussie, my barber.
Okay.
And he'd shave my head, and I'd keep my head shaved as low as I could get. I wouldn't bick it, but like
but
no guard on a clipper.
Nice little buzz cut. Yeah.
Buzz cut. And so my uncle always called me Skinhead because of that.
Okay. Yeah. So not
my uncle's nickname was Rock. He was really into he was really into rock and roll. He turned me on to like Led Zeppelin and stuff.
Nice.
And he had a cool Grand Am 2-door with a vanity plate with his last name on it that said Rigatti.
The cool uncle. There you go.
And it's crazy. We used to race trains.
In the car?
Yeah, we'd race trains down Crick Road, and then you'd have to get across before the train hit you.
Holy shit!
It's like my brother and I as children and our young uncle like listening to Led Zeppelin in his Grand Am flying around.
Dude, that's pretty nuts, man. That's like.
Oh yeah, some of the
that's cool as shit on paper.
We've been shot at and stuff. A friend he didn't necessarily get shot, but he got hit with shrapnel from a gun that was fired near him.
Yeah,
and he dropped his boombox like a piece of pavement.
Really?
This other guy would always threaten to shoot us, and then he shot his gun at the ground, but the piece of pavement or the casing hit him in the arm, and then he dropped his boombox and got really upset. I'm more upset about the broken boombox than the fact that somebody shot the ground near him. You know. Yeah, really crazy shit. Beaver. It's another nickname.
It's another nickname, Beaver.
Yeah, Beaver. What? I'm trying to think of what those other. Yeah, it was crazy. Tim Bob.
All sorts too. They don't even follow a theme. Like it's just
no. And then the big thing, there was this big culture of burning tire. Like we had nothing to do.
So you just burn tires?
Well, no, we didn't.
No, not you.
Yeah, I can't burn tire. I get my dad's truck. He'd kill me if I burned tire.
Yeah, no, but just people.
But we'd hang out on the street corner at night.
Yeah.
And people would come through town because there's a road that ran through town, and people would come to the stop sign, and there'd be like all the kids in town would hang out on these street corners. Plus, at the time, we didn't have our own police, so like you could do whatever you wanted. Okay. Kids would come to our town from other towns in the school district to cause trouble because there was no cops.
Have your own police.
State cops would come if there was bad things. But then no local. So we'd just be on the corner all night, and a car would come through, and you'd just be like, burn tire, and then the cars would just like do a burnout basically. We called it burning tire, and it turned into such a thing that, and then it became a euphemism for smoking weed, and then you weren't allowed to say burn tire in high school anymore. Like it became such a thing.
The connotation was smoking weed,
right? And everybody was just yelling it. Like you couldn't walk down the hallway without hearing 8 people burn tire. And we would come up with all these ways to say it.
Oh, that's awesome!
Like lay a patch, burp fire, squeal wheel, down to the rim, inch thick. All this
that's so awesome.
Yeah, it became like a whole thing. I remember once we were doing that, and then so this is a Good Smithin story. We're hanging out, and on the street corner where we always hung out on, just a few of us, small crowd.
Yeah.
And this little Geo Metro comes through. You know who Ronnie Dobbs is?
No.
It was a character that David Cross did in Mr. Show that was like a topless hillbilly with giant nipples and always wore high tops and had like a mullet and stuff. He had a disease on the show called what was it? It's like ennipolitis or something. Anyway, it was this.
Oh man, so I've heard about Mr. Show.
When you look at what the way Ronnie Dobbs looked, this is the closest thing to this guy. I don't know who he was. None of us knew who he was. This guy comes through on a Geo Metro.
Yeah.
Flies through the corner.
A little tuna can of a car, in case.
Flies through the corner, busts an e-brake, power brakes into the corner we're sitting on, almost nails us. Gets out with the car running, no shirt on, shorts, high top sneakers, giant mullet, ball cap, and just walks up to my friend and punches him in the face.
What the fuck?
And so we get terrified. So we kind of scatter, and my friend's bike is still there. This guy picks up the bike, slams it off the ground, and then just keeps walking down the street. Keep in mind, his car's in the middle of the main intersection of town.
He doesn't get back in the car.
No, he keeps running. So we're hiding, and we run away, we know where to hide and stuff. And we're like, oh, what do we do? Do we like call someone? Do we like beat the shit out of this guy? Like, do you want to go get ball bats? Like, what are we going to do to this guy?
Yeah, what the fuck?
He fucked up our bike, punched our friend. And then one of the Strong brothers, they would always ride home wasted on these bikes down to Jacobs Creek, the next town down. And coming out of nowhere where I'm like looking through a bush and I see this guy ride by on a bike. I was like, oh, where's that other dude? And he comes out of nowhere, punches this guy in the face, clean off of his bike.
Off the bike.
Yeah, and he's like, what the fuck, dude? He's like,
oh my
and the
God.
guy's like, you want to go?
What
He's
was
like,
this guy's
leave me
deal?
alone. No, and then the guy then the guy left after
Nobody
that.
figured this guy. Nobody.
No, we never, to this day, we don't know who
God.
it was.
It's like a town,
Which was saying something.
It's like an urban legend.
You knew who everybody, the best one was.
Just like always, just like, oh, watch out, the face puncher will get you.
We had a mystery truck. And one night when there was a huge crowd on the corner, like
Yeah.
There's this huge truck, probably like an old, like a early 80s F-150 or something, comes through. And it's like multi-paneled Frankenstein-looking truck, with super tinted windows, raised up. You can see like the pumpkin ball underneath and all this shit. Like a total.
Yeah, total. It's like definitely a beater.
Yeah, but like souped up.
Yeah.
So we look at it, give the sign for burn tire, and this truck burned tire for probably a minute.
Really?
And that doesn't sound like a long time. But
no, that's a long time when you're doing it for
you figure your tires
continuous burnout.
Yeah, and it filled the whole town with smoke. It was unreal. And then it keeps going.
Cover the whole town.
And we had nobody knows who it was. You couldn't see in the windows. They just burned this tire. We were so thrilled. And then Mike, no, who was it? I forget who comes through. He comes through. And he's like, what's all this fucking smoke? This was like an adult. And we're like, dude, this truck just burned the most tire. It was the best tire burn ever. And this guy had a pretty fragile ego. He's like, fuck you. I'll be back. And he had his wife's car.
Yeah.
And he goes home, gets his truck, comes back, and he keeps trying to do a minute-long burnout and blew out his tires. Trying to outdo this thing. So we were like,
bro, if you can't get it in one try,
right,
you can't
you gotta
keep
let
doing
it go.
You're going to literally blow the tires.
Yeah. So that was his like crazy... Yeah, that was mystery truck.
Oh man, that's what you get for trying to one up the mystery, man.
Yeah, that thing was legendary.
That's
and it looked like nobody was driving it.
What?
It was so tinted, and it was night. You couldn't see in. It was like, holy shit. That could have been a ghost truck.
And that's the reason it got so much smoke.
Right.
Because it wasn't really there. It was a ghost truck.
We one time on Devil's Night, we went to this.
Because how would he I mean, I guess that's like the burn and tire signal is a pretty easy signal to comprehend. So it's
you pull up to a stop sign full of country boys,
full of kids, yeah, and it's just like that
going like this.
You know what that means,
yeah.
But I was thinking how would he even know? But it's like,
yeah, we're making circles with our fingers.
Yeah, it's a pretty
parallel. It looks like tire spinning. Yeah, one time on. So do you do Devil's Night out there?
No, what?
Devil's Night is what we would call the night before Halloween. Oh. So our main prank on Halloween was this thing called tic-tacking.
Okay.
Which eventually that was too infantile of a word. We called it racking.
Okay.
And we'd go up the hill and steal a bunch of cow corn, feed corn.
Yeah.
From this farm.
Sure.
And then hide it under a tree, shuck it into buckets. Then, as kids, you'd throw it at houses, and it would hit the awnings, and it's hard because it's like feed corn that hasn't been cooked.
Yeah.
It would tick-tack, it was like sounded like that. But then we would eventually start throwing it at cars. So cars would come through town on this road, and we'd be hiding in bushes, just gun it with corn, and then we get chased, and people would catch us and beat us, and sometimes people would shoot at you and stuff.
Holy shit!
In the air, nobody ever got shot.
Yeah, no.
But that was racking, and it was like we only did that October 1st through Halloween. That was racking season. You didn't rack in September. You didn't do it in November.
Season,
yeah. And then so on Devil's Night, we'd always try to do something really scary. And down the road was a place called Quaker. It was an old Quaker church and cemetery in Perryopolis, just down 51 there, towards Uniontown, deep into Fayette County. And it was decrepit, and there was always this like myth that Fayette County was full of Satanists, and I have a bunch of those stories.
Okay. Oh my
but I'm
God.
not shitting you. We went there on 2 different Devil's Nights. The first night we went there, the first year we went on Devil's Night, because it was a scary place. We'd take people from out of town to like go see it, and they would get flipped out. It's like an old broken cemetery. It's like a horror movie shit. We go in there, and I'm not kidding. There's a ring of 6 dudes wearing black capes with candles chanting.
Oh my God.
And we go in, and they look at us, and they're like, "Hey," and they're like,
just like, "Hey,
hey, what's up?" And they're like, "Nothing." And we're like, "All right, see ya." And they're like, "Bye."
Peace, dude.
We got so scared. You know, we're like 14 to 16 years old.
That
we were flipped out.
Yeah, that's the most fucking
Then the next year was
terrifying thing I've
worse.
ever heard.
The next year was worse. We go out there. There's no one there. But there was graffiti all over this place.
Okay.
And there's some of it written in what looked like blood and attempting to be Latin. Like, there's no way it was real Latin.
Yeah,
but
but that's like
some like fake Satanist shit, right? And in the fireplace was a sacrificed dog. They had slit its throat and gutted it and slit its entrails.
Oh my fucking God.
And it was a fucking murdered dog, and it was probably the dog's blood with the fake Latin. Maybe it was real Latin. They went far enough to kill the dog.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I wouldn't put it past them.
That was really shitty. I love dogs. That made me feel really bad.
Yeah. No. That's a bummer. Yeah. That's really disgusting.
Then we also in Fayette County we used to go to this place called Creek Falls. It was like a swimming hole. Dangerous. People would get hurt there a lot.
Okay.
But one time going out there was like a train trestle you had to go underneath.
Yeah.
And there was somebody had hanged a baby pig.
Oh my God!
It was like a little baby pig hanging dead from this thing. Yeah, I was like, what the fuck? Those damn Fayette County Satanists. I don't know if they're ever actually Satanists. But when you see the hanging pig or the sacrificed dog, and people talked about it a lot.
I'm gonna take this podcast and I'm gonna take it home. There's a screenplay in here somewhere.
So I mean, it sounds
there's
like
some
a good
crazy
story.
shit in here. Yeah.
You could do a lot. We'll have to change some names.
Oh yeah, totally. Yeah, no, I'm gonna make some shit up. It might not even be like Fayette County or whatever.
It.
But so I think we can wrap it up now.
Sorry, we got off topic there.
It's fine. No, that's what this shit's about. That's the kind of I love that.
Okay,
I love
good.
that shit. Yeah.
Riffing.
I guess my last question for you would be to any kind of near future advice you would have for someone in my situation, right? Where it's like graduating, gotta make moves, gotta hustle, like anything specific that you've learned that you would like, any knowledge that you would wish to impart on people in my situation?
Sure. This is really generic.
Sure, go for it. Generic shit is sometimes the best.
But work hard.
Yeah.
You got to be hungry.
Yeah.
Especially in anything in this field.
Anything
you're
entertainment
competing with
related,
a lot of people, and if you're not really passionate about it, that's fine. There's plenty of other things to do that you could succeed at that you don't have to be passionate about necessarily. Yeah. I think you are really passionate about it, but
I'm passionate about entertainment.
You gotta, because you gotta hustle.
Yeah.
Take the opportunities that you can get and put yourself out there. Go to shit. Meet people. None of this exists in a vacuum. So like the hustle isn't you put in the time and you do the work, but you also have to go to stuff.
Yeah, it's not enough to put in the work in a vacuum. Like you've got to make the connections as well.
Right. So there's like the two.
You've got to get people to take it. You've got to get people to pay attention to your work.
Right. You have to do the work, and then you have to basically shop it, and that goes for whether you're into entertainment or art or whatever.
Yeah.
That's the hustle. I'm really bad at it. That's why I like a 9 to 5, because I could just make my work and not let it exist on its own. But if that's what you're into, you got to hustle. And then I'd say another thing is value your time and value your worth. I think sometimes what can happen when you're just out of school,
people undersell themselves.
Right, or they want to take advantage of you, be like, well, if you do this for free, then this will happen. And then
I see a lot of that,
Then they just keep working for free, and then...
Yeah, with people who've been in the entertainment industry for, like even anything close to a decade, they're like know your own worth.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like know what you contribute and like really
and value
sort of
that.
Push it.
Don't let people take advantage of you.
Yeah.
Because of how competitive it is, that can happen. But
yeah, totally. And that's another thing that I'm kind of like anxious about, because like I'm a very trusting person, and like I don't fucking know how to lie.
Right.
So
it's not necessarily a lie.
No, I know, but it's just like people. Yeah, no, people like I'm.
It'll be like, oh, come.
I'm
do this
afraid
for
that
me.
I would just be completely unaware if anyone was taking advantage.
You don't want to do internships for the next 10 years.
Fuck no.
You need money.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then the other thing is like some people can make it work wherever they are, but I think your idea of going to a bigger place where there's more work.
Yeah.
It's good.
Mm-hmm. And I'm always gonna have like sort of my own thing. Like this is going on a channel that I'm gonna run, and I want to do a lot of stuff with this. And then like I've got the videos that I've been making for a couple of years. So it's like I'm always gonna have that.
Yeah.
And and if that turns into something that can make me some money, like fuck yeah, that's awesome.
Great. Yeah.
That's like goals. That's pipe dream goals. But it's like,
But you're keeping, and that's good because that's how you're building your skill. You know, you get better the more, you do it.
Totally. Yeah. Like I've learned
easier.
Yeah. Like that's why I put like experience with the Adobe CC suite at the top of my resume is because I've been working with it I've been working with it for 4 years now. So it's like
sweet, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's meaningful shit. You can make some serious cash.
Yeah. People need that shit. Like the one thing, right? Being like around all the film people and everything, you could sort of lose the idea that this is a skill that can be marketed to other people who have no idea. You know, it's like when you're around it all the time, it just becomes completely normal. So like when I got the job at the Career Center, like I told them like, I could do this, I can do that. I might be able to do some shit for you guys. And they were like, you can do that? And I'm like, yeah,
everybody can do that. It's like,
exactly.
Everybody I know can do it.
Exactly.
But
yeah. When you come from an environment where everybody can do it, it was so jarring to just hear that from someone else where it's like,
and that's what I mean.
Oh
like,
shit, this is a commodity.
Value yourself, right?
Totally.
Like, while people who maybe are in that same boat are like, do this for free, there are other people who need it who will pay you for it.
Yeah, totally.
So, yeah, man, that's what I got.
Totally. Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
Sorry for the interruption.
No, it's all good, dude. It's all good. You gotta do what you gotta do. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast, man.
Sweet.
This has been the Party
Where do
Up
I
podcast.
listen to it?
It'll be up on YouTube and SoundCloud. I can send you an email when it goes up. Yeah, totally.
Sweet. Thanks, man.
Yeah, no problem. But thank you guys for joining me. Thanks to Tony for joining the party, and we'll see you guys next time.